feels good to be back in front of this camera. Yo, what's up, world? Welcome back to the channel, Ep.5 Sports signing in, and welcome back to another episode of Chicago Bears Weekly. Today's episode is going to be talking about two former Bears players who in all reality should be in Canton in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. But before I reveal who these two players are, I just want to make sure that you guys are staying absolutely safe out there. I know it's still a ton, and I mean a ton going on, but at the end of the day, I just want you guys to take the proper precautions and still stay absolutely safe out there. And about 60% of the people that watch these videos are not subscribed to the channel. So if you fall in one of those people, be sure to click that subscribe button and click that notification bell so you will not miss any videos that I upload. But it's time to get into this episode. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Alright guys, the first player that I think should be elected to the Hall of Fame who was a former Bear is of course on our defense, on one of the best defenses in franchise history. Number 55 outside linebacker, Lance Briggs. Lance Briggs, he's one of those guys to me I think is very underrated because he was on a team with a guy that's a Hall of Famer now by the name of Brian the Beast Urlacher. Of course, Urlacher was the guy that got all the attention. He was the guy that got all the publicity, but he was important, don't get me wrong, but I think Lance Briggs' role was just as important as Brian Urlacher on those key defenses, the 4-3 cover 2 defenses of Lovie Smith. Lance Briggs is a guy, just like Urlacher, that made the engine of the defense go. Of course, you're going to have other guys, Vasher, Charles Tillman, Adewale Agunleye, Alex Brown, Tommy Harris, and Mike Brown, just to name one of the key pieces. But of course, Urlacher is going to be ranked number 1. But I think Lance Briggs was the number 2 cognate, number 2 piece of their defense. And honestly, I think a lot of the plays and a lot of things Urlacher was able to do because he had a lot of freedom to do those things because he had a guy that was ultra talented and ultra productive in Lance Briggs on the strong side next to him. Him and Urlacher form one of the best linebacker tandems in the history of the NFL. Yes, I said it, one of the best linebacker tandems because of the production they had and the impact they had on the game for what their defense called for. The 4-3 cover 2 scheme was a lot more coverage than blitz, but Lance Briggs filled that role ever so perfectly. In his 11 seasons from 2003 to 2014 as a Chicago Bear, Lance Briggs was a 7-time Pro Bowler, a 1-time first-team All-Pro in 2005, a 2-time second-team All-Pro in 2006 and 2009. He scored 5 defensive touchdowns, 16 interceptions. He had 8 seasons with 100-plus tackles and 15 sacks, and he was a member of that NFC champion 2006 lethal Chicago Bear defense. Now, a lot of people are going to look at those 15 sacks and say, those are a little bit low for a linebacker. Yeah, you can argue that. But also at the same time, they played a 4-3 cover 2 scheme, which did not require a lot of blitzing from the outside linebacker position. And 15 sacks is little, but in terms of how much blitzing the Bears actually did, that is actually a very good number because the Bears did not have to blitz a lot with the scheme that they had. And for him to have 15 sacks, those are still productive numbers. He was one of those linebackers that was able to run sideline to sideline, that had very good speed. He was able to get off blocks and make tackles and make plays all over the field. And to me, he just gets a lot underrated because he played next to a guy named Brian Urlacher. So he was one of those players that I think really got underrated because they elevated guys, of course, Terrell Suggs, Ray Lewis, the Ed Reeds of the world, the Troy Palomalus, and he got overlooked as far as one of the best defensive players in the league. And of course, Urlacher was on his own team. So of course he's going to get overlooked in a bit. But for him to be a 7-time Pro Bowler, to be that productive, I think he should be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. Alright guys, just a quick break. I got to show you guys something. This Briggs jersey, to me, it has sentimental value behind it. Because at the end of the day, I know it's kind of a touchy, sad subject for me, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. This last Briggs Bears jersey was the very last purchase that my father made before he passed away. And unfortunately, he did not make it to see the Lance Briggs jersey arrive. So this holds a lot of sentimental value to me. It's only been worn one time, and that was by my mother at his memorial service. After that, it has never been worn again. I don't even want to put it on. It's just one of those things that gets to me. But I just wanted to share that quick fact with you guys, that special jersey means a whole lot more to me than originally any other person because of the sentimental value of that being the last thing that my dad purchased before he passed away. But enough of that story. The number 2 player that should be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame from the Chicago Bears is Steve McMichael. Should be a Pro Football Hall of Famer. Now, you guys, of course, remember him from one of the best defenses. No, scratch that. The best defense in the history of the NFL, the 1985 Chicago Bears defense. Steve McMichael, he's just like Lance Briggs in the sense that he's getting overlooked because he played with guys like Richard Dent, Dan Hampton, and Mike Singletary, who are all 3 Hall of Fame players. But Steve McMichael was another core key piece in that dominant, and I mean dominant, defense throughout the course of the 80s for the Chicago Bears. He was one of those players who was very, very productive, got after the quarterback, was very, very good, stout against the run, and he's one of those guys that gets overlooked because of who he played with. But when you go back and you really watch those Bears teams, Steve McMichael was a guy that is going to jump out on your television screen because he was ferocious. He was one of those tough, hard-nosed guys who clogged up the middle, made plays, and was ferocious for the Bears. McMichael spent 12 seasons as a Chicago Bear from 1981 to 1993. In the course of those seasons, Steve McMichael was a 2-time Pro Bowler in 86 and 87, a 2-time first-team All-Pro 1985 and 1987, which is weird because he was an All-Pro first team in 1985 but did not make the Pro Bowl, but that's neither here nor there. Of course, he was a member of the 1985 dominant Chicago Bears Super Bowl championship. He was a member of the 1980s All-Decade team, second team at the defensive tackle position, and he finished his career with 95 sacks. A guy from the defensive tackle position in an era where teams ran the ball more versus they threw it, and he still was able to finish his career with 95 sacks, and he is not one of the Pro Football Hall of Famers. He gets overlooked, like I said, by Singletary, Hampton, and Dent. But at the end of the day, Steve McMichael was one of those core pieces of that defense and was very, very productive. Yeah, you might say the two-time Pro Bowler was low, but as I said, he was overlooked. And for him to be a first-team All-Pro in 1985 and not make the Pro Bowl, to me, something is kind of fishy. And for him to be a member of the 80s All-Decade team, that means in the course of the 1980s decade, he was one of the more productive players throughout the course of the NFL, and he finished with 95 sacks. How is a guy that was that productive on a defense that was that dominant not be a Pro Football Hall of Famer? It's one of those head scratchers, just like Briggs. Steve McMichael, I think, should be a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And that is going to do it for today's episode of Chicago Bears Weekly. Thank you guys for watching. If you agree or disagree with Lance Briggs or Steve McMichael being in the Hall of Fame, I want you guys to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And leave a like on this video if you enjoyed this episode. But that will end it for today. Make sure that you guys follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Both handles are APW Sports, and both will be linked in the description below. That is all I have. APW Sports signing out. Make sure you guys have a great and excellent day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
I wanna say thank you to my mom and my daddy for making love the night that you had me. Wanna thank my friends, my sister, and my brother.